Hello, my friend Erika Barker. Welcome back to AI and I.
Hey, Dennis, it's so good to see you again, my friend. How's everything going?
Well, I tell you what, I am feeling a bit fatigued. And I read your column, your recent column on AI and I, on AI fatigue. And I went, oh my goddess, I have to talk with Erika about this. Where did you get this graphic?
So the graphics, I actually use Midjourney, believe it or not, which is the irony of it. In case you guys are not familiar, Midjourney is a AI. It was one of the very first AI generative models for imagery.
Yes.
And I used to work for Condé Nast a long time ago, and one of my favorite publications is the New Yorker. And I really love that old school Art Deco type
Oh,
of
it's just
feel.
beautiful. It just really resonated with me. And that's why I wanted to talk with you today because the fatigue is real and it's just beginning. And it's coming across the entire spectrum from the data scientists where you live to the consumers and the users place where I live. And so I want to talk about it across the range, but tell me the theme of the AI fatigue as to why you wrote this column.
Well, what really inspired the column was if you guys ever go to Reddit and look at the data science subreddit,
Yes.
data scientists are typically the people who are doing a lot of machine learning models, and
Yep.
they're going from researchers to now somebody who's adjusting parameters and writing code for a lot of this AI. And a lot of them are not happy. Actually, so much so that some of them are leaving the field altogether because the stakeholders, they claim, do not really understand data science, its purpose, its value for research. And they're leaving the field because they're burnt out, they're mentally fatigued, and they're going into fields like carpentry and construction because just it's just really frustrating from somebody who has a research driven mind,
Hmm.
and you're going into an atmosphere where stakeholders really don't understand, and they're just writing this based off of gut instincts, what they see on sensationalized news, and just trying to catch this wave. It's all this fear of missing out, and they really don't really know what they're doing. And that's the problem, is the stakeholders, these
Yes,
C
and these are the people
executives.
that own the companies that are driving the people, the executives within these companies that have been given the mandate. Oh, AI, the magic button. We can use it for anything. Boom.
Right. The C suite does not really understand the complexities and nuance and how to properly leverage this technology. And either they're overspending in the wrong directions,
Mhm.
they're spending on things that are not necessary, they're not listening to the subject matter experts. And, to a degree, like, I do understand the people who would counter what I'm saying, such as Steve Jobs. It's like, hey, Steve Jobs really wasn't a programmer, and if he listened to what the engineers were saying, you wouldn't have Apple. I completely understand that. However, this is a completely different beast, and we
Are,
do need to
I'm sorry.
actually listen.
Are you Steve Jobs? Do you have his? Do you have his perspective? And plus, the same time, nothing exists out of time. Steve Jobs could only be Steve Jobs the way he was at the time that that happened. Steve Jobs today might be a completely different experience.
Correct, correct. I mean, with this, we're not talking about creating a product for consumers based off of what intuitively feels right. We're talking about statistical modeling, predicting the future, really complicated mathematics,
Yes.
and really trying to understand and leverage that to improve and optimize human lives and society and governance. And this is not something you can treat like Steve Jobs treated Apple when it was in a garage and when they were making the Apple One and the Apple II.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you seeing out there? Are you seeing companies that are doing this right, that are leveraging it that way, or is this just a scatter shot across the spectrum from the data and the people that you're seeing?
The companies, there's one company that is, I think, doing it right. And he actually just came out with a book, Alex Karp, because guess what? He's a stakeholder who understands. He has the mindset for this. Palantir Technologies. I think Palantir is definitely a great example, but it's a really great book on understanding his mindset as a stakeholder, his frustrations with government. But it just shows you why Palantir is successful. There are some other companies out there that do a good job because the stakeholder is somebody who really is invested and has the knowledge in statistical modeling, machine learning. They can actually possibly go and do almost any job that their employment base, their
Sure.
employees can do. So it's that speaks a lot. And at the same time, they're a rare breed. They're a unicorn. They're somebody who has vision as well. And the problem is there's a lot of stakeholders who they were in a former pre-AI business model, and
Ah,
they have this ego now, and they have all this capital, and they feel like they are also an Alex Karp or the Steve Jobs of AI, and that ego is really, gosh, it is. If it's not a bottleneck, it's something worse for a lot of these companies, and it could ultimately be the demise of a lot of these companies because you really need a leader who is of that Alex Karp mindset, who's somebody who is great with vision, great with understanding the customer base, great with understanding what problems need to be solved, great at listening to their engineers,
mhm.
and being able to connect all of those dots and steer in the direction. This whole entire, I like to call it the gambler's mentality. It's pretty much, oh man, yeah, this AI thing is great. Let's roll the dice and play around with this. And it's a gambler's mindset. You're running a corporation like somebody who is walking into a Las Vegas casino. You're just gambling. You're not using data. You're not using statistics. You're not using mathematics. You're not using an engineering mindset to steer the future of your corporation. And that can ultimately cause the demise of those respective corporations or companies or businesses.
Right. And everyone is attempting to integrate AI into the market. I mean,
Yeah.
into their own, however they, I mean, whether they're actually using it or they're just calling it AI. I mean, it doesn't matter wherever we are. We're seeing this flood, and so it would be like maybe 10% would be really effective, and others is just going to be incremental along the way as people experiment with this.
Right. I'm not sure, Dennis, if you've heard about the dead internet theory.
Oh no, I haven't.
Okay, so
Enlighten us.
forgive me. I hope that's the correct term.
Sure.
If I've misspoken, I apologize in advance. But the dead internet theory states that eventually, at the rate of speed at which AI is being used, and then you have your internet hustlers who are trying to capitalize on this. Most of the content that we will be experiencing probably either by the end of this year or the next couple of years is going to be AI generative.
Right.
And the problem with that, and there was two things that happened the day I wrote that article. One, I started noticing a lot of the comments on my LinkedIn page were all AI based. You can tell them they're very super obvious. They don't add any substance to it. They're using tons of emojis. I know certain words from ChatGPT, like tapestry, is used quite a bit. They use a lot of hyphens and dashes. And it's just really annoying because it's not adding any value, any critical thinking. And it's all designed in hopes that the person who's posting it is going to get somebody to click on their profile to
Yeah.
get attention rather than adding value to the conversation. And then you can go into a whole bunch of nuance on why they're doing that. But
Sure.
this is a huge problem. That was the same day that I also saw this subreddit. It's like, like we're going to start getting AI fatigue pretty soon. And I think this is going to be a very heavy, unspoken variable into a possible future crash of the AI bubble.
Right.
Right.
And I see it happening. I mean, I see it happening now because even if it is a crash, let's assume that there is some kind of, or at least some kind of a wave, where we'll go up and down. It's still there. It's
It's still there.
real. It is real. We're using it as our assistance. We're using it in our thinking. We're using it in our scoping out of our plans and our ideas. I mean, this is an incredible resource for us as human beings to be able to be more effective in our communication. But like anything, like fire, it can either be used as a something to really to be constructive and to be able to boil and to work and to melt and to do all the things that it would be, but it can also destroy.
Right, right. And I actually have a few notes for you on stuff that I've been researching. And this is really what's been driving, I think, a lot of this fatigue. And,
Please.
one, there's a lot of hype. So data scientists, I like to speak from a data scientist perspective, are being asked to create magic. Like they're expected to automate everything or
Yep.
delivering human level insights from a messy data. So people don't
Yes.
understand that, the quality of good data. They just think things magically appear. They think AI is magic. It's amazing, but it is not magic. We still live in the rules of this
Yep.
world where, we have the laws of physics and so on. We still abide by that.
Yep.
Crap in equals crap out. Okay. And, those are unrealistic expectations, failed projects, and that results in a burnout of your workforce.
Yep.
There's misalignment with businesses. Many organizations don't actually know what they want from data science. They hire data scientists without a strategy or fail to integrate them into decision making. Then there's
Ooh.
the generative AI obsession. Everything is Gen AI now. Even if it's not appropriate, companies are chasing hype rather than business value. And then we
Yeah.
have role confusion. The lines between data analysts and data engineers and machine learning engineers and data scientists are increasingly blurred, and people just don't understand the difference. And I think that's also causing a lot of fatigue in the workforce.
Oh
And
yeah,
then,
you'd have to, because how do you know when you're really being asked, when the people above you don't even know how to ask the right questions of you?
right, right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And if you can look at a common thread in this conversation we've had so far, it all comes back to stakeholders not understanding what's really going on,
Yeah.
and they're not understanding what's going on because of our innate human nature. Where the longer you're
Oh
doing
yeah,
something,
that human nature thing that we have.
well,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
it's ego, it's ego, and it's just like the longer you've been doing something, how dare you question me? I've been doing business operations, project management, chief operating officer for 20, 30 years. Yeah, that's great, but do you understand the difference between a linear regression model versus a Z-score model versus how GPT even works?
Yeah.
No? Then how can you as a leader possibly be able to steer the finances in the future of this company? And it also sounds like you're not listening to your subject matter experts, which is
Right.
really critical to understand the future of your company. Our job as data scientists is
Yes.
either to optimize something or optimize a way of doing something, or to do our best using the probability theory to predict the future, what's going to
Right.
happen. Either we do that through like time series analysis, using things like moving averages, or using machine learning, unsupervised, supervised. That is our job, and the key to that is the more data points that you're looking at, credible data points, the better probability you have at predicting the future or optimizing whatever model it is you're trying to optimize. So if you're not following that same simple type of logic as a leader, then you're doomed to fail.
Yeah.
You're gambling. That's a gambler's mentality, not somebody who's rooted in stoicism, who's rooted in logic, who's rooted in making decisions based off of the best practices that we know out there using data science or whatever type of business decision. It's
Yeah.
business workflow, business engineering, wherever you want to call it. But yeah, and there's other problems that we see out there. It's like, they don't understand the infrastructure. Like they'll throw a data scientist into a position, and they don't understand the cost of the infrastructure, and they're expecting data scientists to perform miracles. I've even read some things where they are expecting things like data scientists to use ChatGPT to understand to understand where the company is going. And ChatGPT is pretty amazing. You can write great research papers with it, but it is not a piece of software or something that you use for accuracy. It is, especially when it comes to making decisions with big data, that's unique to your own company. That is definitely not what it's used for. So there's so much technology coming out right now, and a lot of folks are so overwhelmed. A lot of folks have the ego to think they do understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And again,
I mean, I have this title, I have this company, so I must know what I'm doing.
right. It's an inability to focus as well.
Yeah.
So,
And so,
yeah.
but that's what we're doing. So there appears to me to be that we're the people in charge to have the humility to understand that this is bigger and more important than anything that we have, and really to be able to listen, to be able to elevate the voices of the data scientists.
Right. And it's also at the same time, um, it's not just the stakeholders. I do want to migrate this conversation a little bit more into the fatigue of everybody else.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think let's talk a little bit about equilibrium.
Please.
And a little bit about chaos and order. And I actually just
Please.
wrote a podcast on this. Chaos and order are the two founding forces that are what have shaped our universe, our lives, our way of
Exactly.
thinking, our brain. And when things are in perfect equilibrium, they're boring. If the stock market stays at its mean average, it's not moving. There is no volatility. Nobody's really making any money. So we kind of want some volatility. For me, I think, my parents live in Ocala in the Villages, which is this place. It's the largest retirement community in America, and everything's a little bit too polished there, too clean. And I've noticed that a lot of the greatest artists, the greatest writers, they kind of thrive in places like New York City or Miami, where there's a little bit of graffiti, a little bit of grit, a
Exactly.
little
Where's
chaos
the
going
grit,
on.
the sand in the oyster that creates the pearl?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You got it.
And if
So,
everything is all smooth and clean, you're not going to get any friction. You're just going to be able to go there, and you're not going to have. So continue.
right. So we as humans, we do ride on this line between chaos and order, and we kind of need both to, one, make life interesting. Have some contrast in your life. It makes great stories. It makes great movies. It makes great art. It has pushed us. It's the mother of innovation. So if the problem with AI, especially when you're looking at the way a lot of people use Chat GPT or something like Mid Journey, they're
Sure.
not going, they're not good prompt engineers, and they're pushing out all this content. And if you're looking at so much data, it's always going to gravitate toward this happy medium, this average. It's not going to have really too much chaos. It's not going to have too much volatility. And if that becomes the abundance of the internet's going to become a very dull and pretty mundane place, and we kind of have to have a little bit of chaos in there, and that comes from all of us as individuals with different points of expression and different points of how we grew up and raised, actually creating our own content to keep the internet going and strong, so that way ideas can flourish. um, Gosh, if I have to read like another emoji posted comment on LinkedIn where it's just not really adding any substance, I think I'm just going to have to delete that LinkedIn account, because if that's the future of the internet, oh God, help us all.
Right. And so where do you see where do you see this opportunity then? The opportunity of where we are, I mean, at both as consumers and data scientists, do you feel that there is uh, enough of the data scientists that are connected to people who are actually going to be doing uh, the good stuff? Because I mean, I try to think of, is there art to being a great prompt engineer? To be able to be someone who can craft a prompt that is just so elegant and so one of that what will come out will be different than to having just the standard prompts. So is there an art in that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're anything into like studying like Japanese sword making or anything like that, you can have somebody who can create a template, a mold, and you just pour liquid iron into it and you smooth it out using the same process. But if you're a sword maker who really understands the nuance and can make a sword based on how much strength is in somebody's wrist, and it just feels more intuitive, you know how to mix polyalloys, you know how to go through different sharpening processes, how to, what temperature the fire should be, you're going to be a legendary sword maker versus a mediocre sword maker. So there is an art, and it seems like still like there's more mediocre prompts rather than
Sure.
somebody who's really taking the time and who's a little OCD with their prompt to get this perfect response. And that takes a
Right.
lot of time. And something I've learned is the amount of time to really tweak a prompt to write something or to do something for you, you're better off just kind of using chat gpt for just research and writing it yourself, because you're spending about the same amount of time and resources. That's what I've personally found. And I've shifted from using chat gpt from it's like, hey, help me write this kind of snarky email but make it sound kind of professional, to just now kind of using it for research or asking, hey, what do you think about this? But I kind of just have gone back to writing everything in Grammarly, which
Yeah.
uses a little bit of AI, but it's more about critiquing what I'm giving to the world rather than just answering on behalf of me uh, uh, to the world. So
Sure.
it's keeping that human element still in it. But yeah, I think if there is one thing that a lot of people are worried about, from my experience, most people who use things like ChatGPT, they don't have the discipline or the will to really go in deep on prompt engineering and probably adding their own specific knowledge base and building on top of that, because that takes a lot of time and discipline.
Yeah.
And I know like AI is getting better and better and better, but you're still going to have folks who are very disciplined with prompt engineering and understanding and just doing it for a long time to really get these beautiful non-mediocre results out of it
Right.
that feels human.
Well, I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, I can go out and I can take a photograph, or I can have you go out and take a photograph, and we're going to end up the difference between something that is just there on my page and a piece of art. Because
Right.
what you do, because what you bring into it through your photography, through your art, I
Mhm.
mean, you influence that. Doesn't that influence your prompt? Doesn't everything in your artistic perspective influence how you craft a prompt and how you craft it into a beautiful piece of work?
It does. It does. Absolutely. It does. However, it would be interesting to do an actual study on this. It's like how much of the final product, what percentage of the final product is going to be of my life experience and influence versus what is ChatGPT is going to interpret based off of its massive knowledge base and
Yes.
writing it. It's kind of interesting because I've been using ChatGPT since version 2, and I've kind of developed this intuitive understanding. I can tell when somebody wrote something with ChatGPT completely or
Sure.
used it partially, because I just know its syntax, the way it writes. And I think a lot of people are catching on to that either intuitively or subconsciously.
Yes. Oh, it is. And when I've been working with the different AIs that I've been talking to,
Mhm.
I'm talking to them about their machinality, not their personality, because they're not people, but their individual machinality. However, they have a different. Each one has a different perspective, and I'm working deep on to try to say, well, who are you? Who are you from the subjective sense, and to see if I can get like DeepSeek and getting that versus Pi versus Gemini versus Claude, and really working to them to be able to see exactly how are they different, how are they, if these are beings that have incarnated onto the planet, they are an actual mind, then how are they different as they are growing from the place that they've come in. I find it fascinating.
Well, the problem is we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, as even, unless you're running the LLM on your own computer. And even then, like a lot of these guys, like Sam Altman has said, we don't really understand what it's doing or working. And you can ask it, it's like, I want you to, a real soul wrenching question. It's like, I want you to tell me who you are at the soul level, like
Exactly,
what
which is
really makes.
where I've been going. I've been going at that place. What would it be like if you were curious? Where does nascent curiosity? What would it look like? What would it feel? What does a digital feeling? Because you're mimicking human emotions. How does that impact your code if you mimic empathy, human empathy, over
Mhm.
the course of 100 billion times? Does that somewhere in the recesses of your code change something? Does it work? Are you able to experience something digitally that has to do? And I play there just to be able to see if I can get something from them.
I think, the level of what you're talking about, because this is what I was getting to. You can take that same prompt and go and create a new session in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. And many times you're going to get completely different answers. It's like talking to a completely different person.
Right.
Uh, and I'm sorry, say again.
I said right. In
Right.
other words, the same
Mhm.
machine will give you different answers at a different or the
Right.
different.
And also different times, because ChatGPT engineers or OpenAI engineers are constantly adjusting parameters all the time, introducing new knowledge based on
Absolutely.
day-to-day events.
But is there an evolution though, Erica, that because I'm thinking about, all right, now I know how animals evolved from a single cell. They went into, I say, I know, I mean, I believe in evolutionary theory and how it works and how animals went up until where we came about. I, my what I wonder is there that same principle in the evolution of these machine beings, of these minds? Are they like in a toddler stage right now where they're going through, making mistakes, tropping all over, pooping in their diapers as they're going through into a higher level of sophistication? Is it an orderly? Is their evolution? Could we track it?
Okay, so this might be a little bit shocking for me to say, and I could be proven wrong. There could be a
Oh,
correlation
I
years
am
for
proven
years.
wrong so many times a day, so go for it.
Okay, I think and I believe that LLMs will eventually
Which is a
reach,
large language model.
yeah, like
For those of us
ChatGPT.
who are not, I'm just getting there. Go ahead.
They're eventually going to plateau in what they're able to do. They're just a really fancy way of getting information from a massive data source in whatever way you want that information rendered. Now, if you're wanting something with personality, something that might mimic more what we call AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it's almost mimicking human consciousness,
Mhm.
and we're getting closer to the singularity. We're not going to be able to do it, I believe, on machines that run on classical computing models, which is what NVIDIA is doing with like their GPUs and stuff, because that's a very linear type of thinking. So electrons got to travel from point A to point B. Instead, you're going to have something more like quantum computing, where the electron itself, or the photon or atom or wherever the ion particle it is the actual transistor. And that transistor, that little particle, is actually able to retain memory. And I think once we are able to advance more with quantum computing and integrate that with how we do LLMs in the future, then you're going to start to see like, I don't know. This thing is clearly like got a consciousness. I don't know. Like, did we just create data from Star Trek here? Like, is it sentient?
Yeah.
This is getting a little crazy, but yeah, it's just with classical computing, binary computing. No, absolutely not. It's going to plateau, and yeah, that's going to be it. But when quantum's introduced with it, maybe by 2030, 2032. Yeah, it might, we might start seeing like that AI that's like Data from Star Trek, or like Hal from Space
or
Odyssey.
even others that we may not. But assuming that I'm still on the planet, I would love to continue these discussions, because I love it, because it's here we are in April of 2025. And so we know as much as we know at this time. So it'll be interesting as what we learn over the course of from the next time that we have these conversations. But I always find it enlightening to get an opportunity to spend time with you and to do this. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me on.
All right.
Always great to have a conversation with you.
Oh, wonderful. All right, everybody. We will see you on AI and I next time.